Can we use a time schedule to flatten the account under the trailing rules? Yes. So you want to close 2 minutes before the session close. You can, but there's a much easier way. So instead of using a trailing rule to close a position, there's a much easier way. Dean, you can use the scheduler. So let's cover both situations here. All right, so let's get BlackBird open, and let's see, I'll clear that out, and let's clear that, we'll clear that, and all right. So the easiest way to ensure, that any open position is closed either 2 minutes before the session closes or maybe 2 minutes after the session closes, the brokers I've used, quite often they'll allow you to go 2 minutes past the close or a couple of minutes past the close, before increasing the margin, before they increase the day trading margin. But of course that all totally is dependent on the broker. They're all slightly different. So, but getting back to closing that position, right? If you're using the scheduler here, like probably the most common setting for the scheduler would be to set, the session template to the US equities RTH, right? US equities RTH. And of course, these hours here, these blocks of time are based on Eastern time zone here, right? So the time zone is set to Eastern because Ninja Traders, this US equities RTH, right? This comes from Ninja Traders trading hours session template. And this session template is based on Eastern time, the Eastern time zone. So it ends at 4 p.m. Eastern. And then so by default, the force trades to exit is turned on, right? It's enabled. And you can see it says seconds before session end. So if you want 2 minutes before the session ends, then that's going to be 120 seconds, right? So, and that's 120 seconds before the session ends. So if you want to allow the position to play out 2 minutes after the markets close or the session ends, then you could put a negative value in there. So you could say -2 minutes, -2 minutes before the session ends. So that means basically 2 minutes after the session ends. So you could play it, right? So you could play it both ways. You can say 2 minutes. So a positive number is 2 minutes before the session ends, and a negative number, right, would be seconds after the session ends. So that's the easiest way to ensure that your positions, are closed out there. And of course, if you're trading, pre-market, session, if you're trading the pre-market session, if you want to do that, some brokers allow you to trade the pre-market session with day trading margins, so if you want to do that, all you got to do is just adjust your, blocks of time here. So I can just knock it up an hour, like so. So I can add actually 2 extra hours, sorry. Yeah, so I just added 2 extra hours in the morning, and there we go, no problem. So that's the easiest way to do it. Let's reset that. There we go. But if that doesn't, if for some reason the scheduler, doesn't work out for you, then yes, you can, let's see, go into your stop loss, let's go into the trailing actions, and let's add a trailing rule here. All right. So if you want to exit, well, actually this exit time is going to be based on your time zone. So I shouldn't put Eastern time there. So yeah, so this exit time would be based on your time zone. So make sure it's, correct for your time zone there. So the action is easy, or should be fairly obvious here. The action that we want is we want to flatten the position, right? So that's the action, is flatten the position. And the trigger that we want, we don't actually need a bloodhound signal. Let's see, we can use indicator value. Yeah, let's use indicator value. And the indicator that we're going to use, let's open this up here. And so let's go into the indicators. And if we open up the Shark indicators folder and then open up the tools folder, we can use the time block indicator there. And so the end time, right? So the end time, again, the end time is going to be set to your time zone, right? So there we go. So we just need to set the end time. Oh, I got a dash in there. There we go. Okay. So once you get the end time set correctly for your time zone, then the output that we want, stretch this out a little bit, is after, there we go, the end bar. Yeah, is end bar. That's what we want. We want to identify the bar, right, that closes at this time or after this time. Now, one critical thing to understand is that when you're using an indicator, or even bloodhound, so you could create a bloodhound exit signal now that also uses the time block indicator, right? And it'll produce an exit signal based on the time block indicator here. So whether you use the time block directly in BlackBird or through an exit signal with bloodhound, you got to keep in mind that indicators only calculate when a bar closes. So if you're using, range bars or some other non-time-based bar, you got to realize that bloodhound and or the time block, right, it's only going to calculate when the bar closes. So if that bar does not close exactly at 58 minutes, then you're not going to get a signal at 58 minutes, right? You're going to get a signal when the bar closes after 58 minutes, right? So let's say you're trading 5-minute bars, right? Obviously a 5-minute bar, it's not going to close. A 5-minute bar is not going to close 2 minutes before 4 o'clock, right? So you have to wait for that 5-minute bar to close at 4 o'clock. So you're not going to get an exit signal at 58 minutes, right? So always keep that in mind, that indicators only calculate when the bar closes, right? So the timestamp of the bar close is what will determine, exactly when you get this exit signal, if you decide to use the time block, and or a bloodhound exit signal. So anyways, so that's how you would do it with a trailing rule there. So as you can see, trailing rules are subject to when the bar closes. Whereas the scheduler, the scheduler has its own kind of timer system. So the scheduler is always checking. So as each incoming tick comes in, so in other words, as the market price changes, right, each incoming tick, activates the scheduler to check the time. So this is far more, the scheduler is far more reliable than using a stop loss trailing rule. So now, of course, if you're trading on 1 minute bars, then this is going to work just fine, right? So, or if you're trading on 2 minute bars, it's going to work fine. But if you're trading on 3 minute bars, right, or 6 minute bars, then the time block has to wait for that 3 minute bar to close first before the time block would generate, a signal. So, all right there, Dean. So there's your two options there.